This is a new gaming pre-built by MSI, which should be real interesting considering that the previous one did the PC equivalent of soiling itself on stage, so this can only be better, but we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. Let's open it up. But first, today's video sponsor that helped pay for the system. Today's video is sponsored by Be Quiet and their new FX series of products, which is basically like their amazing standard products, but with RGB. Be Quiet has RGBified their PureRock 2 air coolers, PureLoop 2 AIOs, and PureBase 500 cases. And considering that they use non-proprietary RGB connectors, that should minimize the RGB struggle. So check the link in the video description if you want some Be Quiet RGB. Thanks Be Quiet for sponsoring today's video. Now, one of the redeeming factors of the previous MSI pre-built is that it came with the e-waste peripheral equivalent of Brad Pitt's abs in Fight Club, and this seems similar. That is a reasonable e-waste peripheral right there. It'll definitely be usable. And then we also have the e-waste mouse in here. Oh, they've got 2 layers of turtle death protecting it. That's nice. And this is a clutch GM08. I don't even think you can consider these e-waste peripherals. That's pretty cool. Good job, MSI. And then finally, we get some instructions about how to set up your new MSI gaming system. I find it a bit weird that they don't say anything about how to diagnose blue screens of death on this system, but maybe it's less important on this one. We'll find out soon enough. I can do this. I'm a strong, independent woman. You know it's gonna be a good day when you get stickers included with your gaming PC. The sticker kind of looks like the little dragon is coming to annex my office or wherever you set it down. So if I stick it on anything, I guess MSI owns it then? Is that how property law works? I don't know. And then we get some technical support information, Wi-Fi antenna, power cable, and 2 SATA cables. Very nice. Ooh, it's packaged in some very squidgy high quality foam. Oh, that kind of looks like an Acer Loser Nitro Suckface edition. There's just something about the way the top bit of plastic wraps around to the front and the pretend ventilation. It doesn't look exactly like one, it just has a similar vibe. Ooh, an embossed MSI logo. Very fancy. In terms of front I/O, it's perfectly fine. We've got 2 USB 3 ports, a microphone and a headphone jack, and a pretty satisfying power button. By the look of the back, they painted the inside of the case, which is quite rare for these OEM crap boxes. I'm gonna take this sticker off to see what port's under here, at risk of me accidentally using it for testing. Other than that, the rear I/O is nothing to soil your undies over, but it's perfectly serviceable. And then the power supply up here seems to be a standard ATX power supply, which is good. It means potentially that we can upgrade power supplies if we need to, but that all depends on what kind of internal connectors we're using inside the system. So on that note, let's open it up and see what's going on inside this MSI system. On first impression, the inside of the system does not make me want to take a potato peeler to my eyes. We have no proprietary parts that I can immediately identify. We also have a CPU cooler that doesn't just look like a cheap knockoff of an Intel stock cooler from 1752. It looks like a cheap knockoff tower cooler from 1752, way better. And it's got dual channel RAM. That's so exciting. But now that the excitement of surpassing zero expectation has died down a little, the cable management is kind of shocking. Although it makes sense, there doesn't seem to be much cable management space in the case, and then we have a non-modular power supply, so that's kind of why this rat's nest has built up in here. This is quite a dark and dingy little case interior. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of airflow and stuff going on here, so even though we have a better air cooler, I think temperatures are still going to be a problem, but depending on the temperatures later in the video, we may change the case out to something a little less hermetic. Now, in terms of specs, the CPU under this cooler is an Intel i5-12400, a very good CPU, and then we have an RTX 3060, so that's the graphics card, and 16 gigs of DDR4. In terms of storage, we have an M.2 SSD, which may fix the constant blue screening of the previous MSI prebuilt. That problem was linked to a bad Windows install and a terrible SSD, so maybe this won't crash the whole time. Fingers crossed. So after having looked at the inside of the system, I'm guessing the biggest pube in the ointment of the system is going to be the case that's not very good. Although, having said that, we've not looked at the power supply yet, which could easily be a bigger problem, so let's have a closer look at that. Oh, you actually can't see the back of the power supply from here. Now, while we're back here, you can see that we have some pretend cable management holes, but there's no clearance between the back of the case and the back side panel. So yeah, it makes sense that this is all they could fit through here. Apex Gaming. How have I never heard of that before? I don't understand how at this point there are still power supply OEMs I've never heard of. I feel like every one of the 17,000 pre-builts I've looked at has had a power supply in it by a different OEM. Where are they all coming from? Now, according to LTT's power supply tier list, this Apex Gaming STB is a D tier power supply recommended only for very cheap iGPU based systems. This is not a very cheap iGPU-based system, so not an ideal pairing for this PC. So it may be a standard ATX power supply, but that doesn't mean it's a good power supply. So now that we've had a decent look at the physical inside of the system, let's have a look at how much venereal disease that hardware has been infected with from the factory. It's time to turn it on. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually pretty excited to press that power button, so let's... Nice! The thingy lights up, which as we all know helps with ventilation. Actually, on the note of ventilation, I just noticed that MSI snuck some in around the acrylic mounting. Some sneak attack ventilation. Straight off the bat, we get some Disney action, we get Clip Champ, video editor. I mean, I think some of this stuff just shows up with Windows 11, so that's not really MSI's fault. Although we do have Norton antivirus pre-installed, which I'm not really sure if I think that's better or worse than McAfee. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Otherwise, we also have MSI Center, which... Oh, I see. It's like a VD mothership that you use to cultivate more VD in your system. That's exciting stuff. Although on a serious note, why is MSI Afterburner not one of these options? It's a bit weird. Generally though, for an OEM pre-built, the bloatware situation is not too bad. Just a couple retrovirals and you should be good. In terms of RAM speed, it may be dual channel, but it's not running at its rated speed out of the box. Let's check the BIOS to see if we can change that. We can. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna do the initial testing with it at 2666 megahertz, and then I'll enable XMPs to see how much of a difference that makes a bit later. On that note, let's check out the gaming performance. GTA 5 running at 1080p very high settings, we're doing well. Considering the fact that we actually have dual channel RAM in here, you can see that we may not be using 100% of our GPU, but we're not only using like 20% of it. So yeah, that's pretty good. The only thing is that GPU temperature is not entirely promising. I've only been playing like 2 minutes and we're in a room with an ambient temperature of 14 degrees Celsius and it's already just skyrocketed to 71 degrees Celsius. So I've been playing Battlefield 5 for a little bit now, and well, it didn't take too long for us to get to 80 degrees Celsius on the GPU, and you can hear it. It sounds quite strained in there, which, considering the 15-degree ambient temperature in the room at the moment, is not ideal in terms of temperatures. I think if you are in a hotter country, it would get way hotter than that very fast. In terms of performance, at 1080p high settings with DirectX 12, Battlefield 5 is running very well. Because the system came with dual channel out of the box, we actually have it doing things. So that is a positive. So with Cyberpunk at 1080p medium settings, we're getting in the mid to high 70s in terms of frame rate. Now, I have been using the included MSI peripherals, and luckily they don't make the voices come back. Although, I don't love the mouse. It's not very comfortable. It kind of cramps up my ring finger a bit. But in terms of like the sensor and stuff, it's a reasonable mouse. And it's miles ahead of the kind of thing you would get with an Acer or Dell-based system. Now getting back to the game, that is a razor flat frame time graph. But anyway, with that, I am now going to install new drivers by DDU wiping GeForce Experience, and then I'll also enable XMPs, and then we can see how much of a difference that makes. After DDU wiping, installing the newest drivers, and setting the RAM to its rated speed, we got a healthy improvement in performance, especially when it comes to the 1% lows. It led to a much smoother feeling gaming experience. But that still leaves the sauna case to deal with. So now that we've done some testing, let's unshackle this system from its Acer loser-inspired case to see how much of a difference it makes. First things first, we need to gut the little oven case. So the exact RTX 3060 that's been struggling in this system is the Ventus 2. Don't worry, little buddy, we're gonna put you in a better home soon. Oh, look at that. So that's another problem with this case power supply combination, because we have this substandard power supply drawing all its air from the system cooking underneath it. Now, I'm no expert, but that seems like a bad idea to me, MSI. I don't know. Storage-wise, we have an MSI M390 NVMe SSD, and we've not had crashes so far, so that's good. Now that we've got all the internals out, and I'm keeping the power supply, I'd recommend upgrading that, but I don't have a reasonable replacement, so for this video I'm going to stick with it. But all of this stuff is now going to go into a new case, which will hopefully help the temperatures. Now in terms of case, we're going to use this NZXT H5 Elite that NZXT sent over. I thought this was going to be a Flow. The Elite is a bit more of a fancy case than I would use for a case swap like this, but I had it lying around and it will get the point across, you know? So let's use it, Birth that case, come on. Ooh, look at those big ass fans in the front, and we actually have some ventilation. It's not the most ventilation, but it's definitely not pretend ventilation. It also has this special GPU blower fan thing, which I feel like the front fans already blow air on the GPU, but whatever. I won't complain about more fans. So with that, let's drop our little MSI system in here just to illustrate our point of how important non-proprietary parts are. I can't believe I'm actually putting this class 4 hazardous material power supply in this system. Wow, this quite quickly turned into a bit of an abomination with the ketchup and mustard cables and the M80X motherboard inside an ATX case that kind of makes the system look like it's a fungus growing on the inside of the case. But no, that's missing the point. This is a monument to the principle of modularity. One of the fans don't work. It's because that splitter is broken. Yes! So much light! Holy crap. So after about 20 minutes, we are 13 degrees Celsius cooler on the GPU in this new case. So that is a considerable difference in temperature, and it's quieter as well. There's just a purposeful hum to it, but it doesn't sound like it's straining under the weight of its ovenness in the way that it did before. And then the final question we need to answer is, did I get the same blue screens of death I got with the previous MSI system? And after 3 days of testing, the closest thing I got to a blue screen of death was Norton interrupting a Battlefield 5 gaming session. Which obviously doesn't mean it never will, but that is an order of magnitude better than the Codex R we looked at before. Which brings me to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next video, bye bye.